Mondal, I would like to say a few words as to how we got into this business of underground experiments. There was an international conference, the first ever elementary particle conference on elementary particles held by Dr. Bhabha in Bombay in 1950, December. At that time, the mu meson had been discovered. In fact, I had been asked to work on mu mesons. And pi meson had been discovered, but still was not much was known about it, except that it is the father of mu meson. And K mesons were suspected, though it was all, see, all these discoveries are 47, 48, but at that time, it took a long time. First the K mesons came as V particles, and Professor Blackett himself did not agree that it was a new particle. So the real credit for discovery of K mesons came much later, unfortunately. So at that time, Dr. Bhabha one day called me, and since I had set up instrumentation for detecting mu meson decays, he had got some ideas about K mesons and pi mesons and so on. He said, Sreekantan, you go down the Kolar goldfields and check whether all the penetrating particles underground are mu mesons or there are other particles. And that was not easy to do because we did not have much information even about intensity depth curve at that time. There were a lot of controversies. Anyway, the first thing to do was to go and do deep underground intensity depth measurements. And that is how we started. Then between 1951 and 52, myself and Dr. Narayanan, who was my colleague at that time, we went and started the measurements in Kolar goldfields. And we went to about 1,000 feet below ground. By then already the size of the apparatus which we had, Geiger counter trace, was too small. We started getting one count a day and one count in 1.5 days like that. So we stopped that. After we came back, suddenly we realized that the underground intensity measurements should be done more accurately, and also the angular distribution is very important because just then the K mesons had become popular, and Professor Greisen had suggested that one of the ways of measuring the lifetime of the K meson is to do an angular, because K meson was also known to decay into pi and mu. So he suggested that one should do an angular distribution measurement and see whether it's all pi mesons, whether you can say 80% is pi mesons, 20% K mesons, and so on. This is the kind of study he suggested that. So we went back. By then I had one more colleague, that is Dr. Ramanamurthy, who had joined me. And then something happened. See, Dr. Bhabha called me one day and said, Sreekantan, I want you to go along with this team that has been selected to set up the first reactor in the country. So I was writing my thesis, but he says, you join the atomic energy team. So that was a big shock for me because, to give up underground experiments and I had not even completed my thesis and go and do reactor instrumentation and all that was something very unpalatable for me. So I protested. I said, sir, I have come here to do fundamental research and not... Why I am saying this is, if at that point of time I had just gone off to the reactor engineering group and then done electronic instrumentation with them, I don't know whether KDF would have been continued because the other two were still very junior to me, and then probably there would be no neutrino experiment, no proton decay, nothing, or we don't know, because Professor Manan came much later. He joined TIFR only in 1955 and he got interested in underground work much later actually. Then what happened, we went to of course, we started KGF experiments very vigorously. We got into collaboration with Professor Wolfendale, and then Professor Miyake came here as a visiting professor to the institute. And he had no idea what he wanted to do in India. So while discussing with him, you see, Ramanamurthy was pestering me, saying that let us go back. See, in the meantime, I forgot to tell you, we worked in Kolar goldfields, and the mining people said, we are going to close down the mine, so you better pack up and go. So we then did our experiment in Khandala railway tunnel, which is now it's an abandoned railway tunnel. Now that is the roadway to Khandala actually. So we brought everything back from underground, KGF, and started working there. But Ramanamurthy was persistent. Let us go back, we'll because KGF did not stop. They started continuing their operations. And then, you see, we were in 2 months to go back there, because if they are going to close down, what are we going to do? So then when Miyake came here, when we discussed with him, he says he will also bring some people from Japan, and then he would be interested in doing underground experiments and underwater experiments also. So that is how we started these underground experiments in 1958 again, actually. From 1958 to 1990, various experiments went on there. That is first the cosmic ray experiments, angular distribution, intensity depth. And on the basis of intensity depth, which is known as the MNR paper, that is Miyake, Narasimhan and Ramanamurthy, it turned out that the analysis of that paper showed us that it is possible to detect cosmic ray neutrinos. So immediately we mounted our efforts in the direction of detecting cosmic ray neutrinos. And we succeeded. In fact, by the time of 1965 London conference, you see, we had evidence for cosmic ray-induced muon interactions in our detectors. And that brought more collaboration between Japan and UK, and that went on for some time. Then 1979, at the time of the second Japanese conference on cosmic rays at Kyoto, second Kyoto conference, this question of proton decay became very important. And we came to know that there are some people trying to do proton decay experiments in the world. Then, we see this required an enormous amount of resources. We did not have that kind of resources to do a proton decay experiment, because when we came and calculated the amount of iron to be used and the type of detectors we had to build and all that, it was a little staggering. But also we needed more people, because we had distributed ourselves into various other activities also. We had started experiments in Ooty on extensive air showers and all that. And we had another group working in Kolar goldfields on air shower experiments. V.S. Roy is not here today, I think. He was heading that group. And so you see, we did not have enough numbers to do this experiment. But at the same time, we had support from the Japanese group. Miyake tried to support us to the maximum. And the other problem we had during those days was that we had very little foreign exchange. And most of our equipment we had to import. We could not make them without components coming from abroad. So with very limited foreign exchange and lack of money and all that, somehow we ventured. And let me tell you, it's at that stage that Naba Mondal got into our group. And what happened was, before that we were taking only research scholars for PhD. There was a restriction put by our theoretical physics group that these people must do their courses first and then only join the experiment. We were not very happy against, while we are not opposed to their taking courses, we were not happy with the idea that they spend their first 1.5 years or 2 years in just doing courses. We wanted them right in the field and operational. So I had become the director at that time. So what I did was I created a new category of people. The first category that got into it was Naba, and then the present director of the radio telescope, the radio astronomy group in Pune. These two people and some others, I don't remember the names, they were appointed as research trainees. so that these research trainees, they first went to the field station, did their work, and then at their leisure, they could take the courses and then were required for the, I had to do that because if they first spent 1.5 years in doing theory, during those days, any student we interviewed, he wanted to do theory, or he wanted to do solid state physics. Because in the Indian universities, these were the only two subjects that were taught probably. And most of the students were thrown out by the theoretical physics people here, saying that they don't know enough theory, so we can't take them. So you see, the question of getting students was a big problem during the 70s actually. Before that, we had one advantage. See, Narasimham and many others came to us through the BRC training school. Somehow that connection got cut off after they moved to some other location, and somehow TIFR said we are going to have our own courses and things like that. And that connection broke, and then for about 7-8 years, we had no students coming into cosmic ray research or particle physics and all that. So Naba was the first person in that research trainee group. After that, we took many more into that, and then we could survive the experimental activities in this institute. And then of course, you know, between Narasimhan and Naba, I don't know who has spent more time underground, because yesterday I was just trying to figure out, because when we went there first, the conditions were such that because of the kind of electronics we had and all that, we were afraid of fire, some sparking somewhere. And then the mining people had threatened us, saying that, look, if there is a fire, then we had to close down the mines, that particular shaft, for weeks. So all the loss you would have to suffer, because you are responsible for it. So we used to go and sleep there in the nights by turn. Either I would sleep there, or Narayana would sleep there, or Ramamurthy would sleep there, in the company of millions of cockroaches all around, and because these underground places are full of cockroaches. But anyway, I must really congratulate Mondal and Narasimham and these people for having stuck on to the coral gold fields under very difficult conditions. They worked at a depth of 8,000 feet below ground for what? For 10 years or 15 years, like that. First neutrino experiments, and then the proton decay experiments, phase 1, phase 2, etc. And it has been, you know, I'm out of TIFR for the last 25 years now, 20 years, literally from this campus, and 25 years since I retired as director. So lots of things have happened. In fact, I'm very happy to the narration that Jane gave about what all that Mondal has done. I mean, it's really very creditable, and I won't like to take more time, but it has been a very pleasant recall for me of the old days, and I wish Naba and his family all the best in the future. I must tell you one thing before I sit down. In 1987, we called Dr. Ramanna here to celebrate his 60th birthday, and it's 85. And Mr. J.R.D. Tata had come here to preside over the function, and he started saying that, what is this 60 years? I'm 75, that is a respectable age. This 60 is nothing. So that is what I want to tell you.